Hi, these comments are for WA. This is Michael from BetterTOEFLScores.com. Thank you for completing. This is your first integrated speaking practice test to complete as one of my online students. So I have the actual rubrics from ETS. I'm looking at them right now, and I'm getting ready to listen to your practice test. Okay, here we go.
The university has proposed a change. According to this change, the university cafeteria will be closed from next month. The woman in the conversation totally disagrees with this idea. First, she mentions that closing of cafeteria means students will be not able to enjoy their free time because it was the only place where they sit in their free time. Secondly, she points out that this area,
Okay.
this cafeteria, not only offers a great variety of food, but also it is very much cost effective. So that is the reason the student clearly opposes this idea based upon his two strong reasons.
Okay, so you got 47 seconds, and I would use a little bit more there. I would try to go another 10 seconds, maybe by explaining a little bit more about the actual announcement that was posted. Okay, so I'm going to give you more feedback right now. So my guess is I'm thinking you're probably between 2.5 and 3. I'm going to say your speaking is fair. You're probably looking at somewhere between maybe 19 and 21 points out of 30 on this practice test. That would be my estimation right now. So now I want to listen to it again, and I'm going to try to give you some feedback as I go through your response. And then I've also organized some written feedback into Microsoft Word I want to talk to you here in just a minute. So you can have some good ideas on things you can do from here to continue to move forward. So you're working very hard. Keep up the great work that you're doing because practice makes perfect. That's it. The key is to email me your speaking practice test, get the feedback, make the required changes, and then little by little you will get better. I promise you. Okay, here we go.
The university has proposed a change.
So you said the university has proposed a change, but where is this coming from? So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're acknowledging the reading passage and the lecture or the conversation in this case. So you might say in the campus announcement, the university proposes a change on campus, and in the listening, the student reacts to that notice. Something along those lines. So you need an introduction that will mention both the announcement and then the student's reaction to that announcement.
According to this change, the university cafeteria will be closed from next month.
That's a little awkward. Will be closed from next month. I would just say will be closed beginning next month.
The woman in the conversation totally disagrees with this idea.
So maybe you could use a transition word there to help show the contrast. So you might say, however, or on the other hand, the woman in the listening passage strongly disagrees with this change and gives two reasons to support her opinion, maybe you might say, and that'll give you a little bit better structure to your ideas.
First, she mentions
Now, I think
that
that you said secondly, right? So you want to say either first and then second, or firstly and then secondly. So I like, excuse me, I like that you're using transition words, but the transition words need to be grammatically parallel. I think that's important.
closing of cafeteria means students will be not able to enjoy their free time because
They will not be able to, not will be not able to. So usually when you put the negative, I would put it right after the auxiliary verb and before the main verb. So they will not. So you have the auxiliary verb plus the adverb plus the main verb. I think that's a better word order than how you phrased it.
it was the only place where they sit in their free time.
I'm not quite getting the meaning there. This is a pretty big problem there. I'm not quite sure what you said there. So That is unintelligible for me. I have my headphones on even, and I have the context to work with. I'm still not quite sure. So there's a few areas in your response where your delivery is not clear. It's a little bit choppy, maybe some minor problems with both pacing, rhythm, and also tone. You
Secondly,
notice that? So
she
you said first and then secondly. So say firstly and then say secondly, or say first and then second.
points out that
Now, I
this
like how
area
you're using the voice markers. So first, she points out that you're using actually their present tense reporting verbs to help explain or summarize her ideas. That's a good strategy.
this cafeteria not only offers a great variety of food, but also it is
So not
very
only
much
offers, but also is. So not only plus verb, but also plus verb. So your actual parallelism with your pair conjunctions is strong there. So I think you did a pretty good job there.
cost effective. So that is the
I
reason
would say
the
instead of
student
so there, you're in a new sentence. I can kind of tell you dropped your tone at the end of the last sentence. You have a bit of a pause. Say something like therefore, or maybe as a result, or consequently, or maybe say thus or hence. So put a more formal transition word, I think, at the beginning of that sentence and not so. So is a little bit less formal. We use it a lot in conversational English. I wouldn't use it in this type of speaking.
clearly opposes this idea based upon his two strong reasons.
So wait a minute.
So that is the reason the student clearly opposes this idea based upon his two
Based on his
strong
two
reasons.
strong reasons, right?
University cafeteria will be closed from next month. The
That's what
woman
I
in the
wanted to
conversation
see. So you mentioned the woman in the beginning, but then you're referring to her now as a man at the end of the recording there. So keep your pronouns consistent. Your masculine pronouns refer to a masculine noun. Your feminine pronouns refer to a feminine noun. So it gets a little confusing if you're shifting the pronouns from the beginning to the end of the response. All right, so those are kind of my comments. I think that my first impression is probably pretty accurate, 2.5 to 3. I think your speaking right now is fair because of the comments I've just provided. Now let's take a look at, I've organized my notes a little bit more so you can see them within this Microsoft Word document. So I said, there are a few things you can work on to make your score higher. Obviously, you don't want to be maybe 18 or 19 points. You want to get 26 or higher. So let's talk about different areas. Number one, delivery. Your speech is mostly clear, but there were some parts that were hard to understand. A few words were either mispronounced or rushed, which made it tough to catch your meaning. Also, your rhythm and stress felt off in some places, which can make your ideas sound choppy or disconnected. So, the tip is try practicing with shadowing. You're already doing this, I'm sure, right? Listen to native speakers, repeat what they say with the same pacing and intonation. That can really help smooth out your delivery and make you sound more natural. Language use. As I said, you had some pretty good grammar structures in there. You pulled off a very nice parallel structure with the pair of conjunctions, not only but also, but you also had a few problems. So one of them is word order. I think you said will be not able to. It should be will not be able to. So the way that you phrased it is unnatural and doesn't fit the predictable or common word order with the adverb placement of not after the auxiliary verb. Totally, I don't think it really fits in academic speaking. It sounds a bit casual or vague. If you just say she disagrees, I think is enough, or she excoriates the uh, the announcement. If you say excoriates as a verb, it means that she strongly dislikes what's in the passage. So I think be careful about using degree adverbs. I wrote a blog post about this a while back. We have two types of adverbs that we can use in both academic speaking and academic writing. We have degree adverbs, things like totally, incredibly, really, very, to as in TOO, and so Any adverbs similar to that are called degree adverbs. In many cases, you can simply omit them with no loss of meaning at all. Okay, starting with the sentence with so is okay in casual talk, but as I said for TOEFL, I would probably use something like therefore or consequently. I think would be better. Your tip, focus on using more precise and formal language. Try replacing words like totally with stronger, more specific vocabulary that fits the academic tone. Okay, let's talk about topic development. You covered both the announcement and the speaker's opinion, but your introduction could be clear. You want to make it obvious what came from the reading and what came from the listening. You might say something like, according to the announcement, blah, 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 and then in response, the woman disagrees because blah, blah, blah. So that would help clarify, I think, if you just had a short introduction which acknowledges both the reading, I think, and the student, I think that would be a little bit better. When you move from one idea to the next, you said first and then secondly, try to keep your transition words consistent. You might say first and then second, or firstly, secondly, but don't use them, don't mix and match them. So tip, use this kind of structure. I'm going to give you a little bit better feedback here in a minute on this. So summarize the announcement, say what the student thinks, give 2 clear reasons with examples. I think that will help you stay organized and make your answer easier to follow. So here is a template, but be careful. Templates can be helpful, but they can also create problems because a lot of students use the same templates, and if they're recognized on the actual TOEFL exam, they could look at that as unoriginal or plagiarized type content, and that's not good. But here's kind of how you might do it. You have the reading plus the listening, the campus announcement, and the student opinion, right? So in the introduction, you might say, according to, you might say the announcement article or whatever, the university plans to, then summarize the change or policy. In the conversation, the student agrees or disagrees with this decision for 2 main reasons. So as you can see in the template, you have reason 1. First, the student says, blah, blah, blah. They explain that, blah, blah, blah. Then reason 2. Second, the student mentions. And then insert reason 2 briefly. They add that and get some extra support there. Then you have your optional transition or conclusion. For these reasons, the student agrees or disagrees with the change. And you actually did a pretty good job in the conclusion. I liked how you kind of restated the purpose of the actual response that you did. You kind of restated the most important points at the end. Okay, here's an example with content. So I'm taking the template and I'm going to put content in there as you can kind of see how it looks. And you might practice this. And let's see how long it takes. I'm going to time myself reading it. Okay, here we go. According to the announcement, the university plans to close the art building starting next month due to renovations. In the conversation, the student disagrees with this change for 2 main reasons. First, he says that the art students will have no access to important equipment and supplies during this time. He explains that many classes rely on specific materials only available in the building. Second, he mentions that the timing is terrible because the semester is almost over. He adds that students will not be able to finish their final projects, which could affect their grades. For these reasons, he strongly disagrees with the university's decision. So mine's a little bit short too, but as long as you're getting the most important points there, that took me about 45 seconds. So see if you can practice reading this a few times and try to read it in about 50 seconds. If you can do that, you have a pretty good speaking rate. And kind of remember, you might even practice a video and read with me as I go through the response, and you can kind of focus a lot on the pausing. Notice how I'll say things like he explains, and I pause right before that dependent clause there, like he explains that many classes rely on specific materials only available in the building. So you want to make sure you're not pausing too much as you go through the sentences. All right, so you got a lot of good strengths, as I pointed out. You had some good grammar and some good structure, but delivery and clarity are holding you back right now. So I think with a little bit more practice, especially on pronunciation and pacing, you can definitely get your score into the 3 and 4 range, but it takes time. And thank you for completing the practice test.